there was an election. As I'm sure everybody knows, if you're watching this show, you probably know there was an election a couple of days ago. And Doug Ford won that election, a third consecutive majority government, very, very difficult to attain. And he managed to do that. The NDP kind of stayed around the same spot that they were in before, and the Liberals kind of also stayed around the same spot that they were in before, except they did win official party, or they did gain official party status. Fortunately, the leader of the Liberal Party lost her own seat in her hometown of Mississauga, where she served as mayor for almost a decade. We are not going to get too much into that because we did talk a lot about it a few days ago, and I'm sure you're hearing lots of coverage. But Cody, how are you feeling? First of all, that broadcast was fun. I think we should do it again and again and again and again. And we should always have people popping by. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was really fun, and I had a lot of fun too. We were discussing that before we came on air that we were actually really glad we had nothing to do with this election, because it would have been miserable. Whether you're, the PCs, the Liberals, or the NDP, it would have been miserable.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing that I took away from last night, aside from the fun, and we joked around a lot about a lot of different things, is that we really accomplished last night what we set out to do in this podcast, because we had people with conservative voices, with liberal voices, with New Democrat voices. And, at so many different points in the podcast, we either agreed with each other, we disagreed with each other. We had conservative voices agreeing with the New Democrats and liberals agreeing with New Democrats. And it was great. It was so much fun. And I hope that we do it again.
And that is the point of the radical center. It's where everybody finds something to agree upon sometimes and disagree upon. Yeah.
And just so I'll throw it to you. From when we got off the air last night to now, is there anything that has changed that you think is notable in the last not even 24 hours?
Well, a couple of things. I've noticed that there's a little bit more talk online about whether the Liberal leader should resign or remain as leader. It's just party chatter at this point. I expect that's going to get louder over the next week, couple weeks, 3 weeks. I would say we're going to be hearing a lot of that conversation in March and April. And then we'll see what ends up happening. It's really interesting because this is a situation that's never really happened before, because the Liberal Party has never been in such a terrible shape before, right? Even going into the election, having been third place, no official party status, really just not in a good spot. And then you have this leader who everybody expected is going to be this great savior of the party, and then the leader falls short herself, unable to pick up her own seat, but at the same time still they pick up a few other seats, which I if you look at every seat, I really believe that there's local factors that drove that result rather than the leadership or the central campaign, if you look at each seat individually. But we won't do that today. But it's just a weird outcome. Like, it's a weird outcome for a leader to pick up seats but lose her own in her own city. Like, I don't even know what to make of that.
Yeah, I don't. It's it's something to process, is something to think about over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It did help that Sylvia Gualtieri, she had the full force of the Patrick Brown machine in that riding. And the other thing is I noticed last night that Doug Ford, when I woke up this morning on my way to work, I listened to all three of their speeches. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I noticed is, Doug Ford was his typical protect Ontario, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Marit Stiles she conceded, and then she said, I'm willing to work with the PC government to deliver for Ontario.
Hmm.
And I thought that that was a fantastic speech because she put her arm out and she said, I'm willing to work with you guys. And if Doug Ford doesn't take her up on that offer, if it I think it's genuine, then that's on him. But Bonnie did not accept defeat.
Yeah.
It was
I
not
thought
a
it was odd.
concessions. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
It's
was
odd.
not a concession speech,
Yeah.
right? No, she didn't congratulate anybody. She just said, she basically said we won when
They didn't.
they didn't. They barely
Far from
achieved
it.
part. Yeah, she
Yeah.
barely achieved party status.
By the way, party status isn't something to like get really excited about. Like it's not really that big of a deal. It just means like you get to be a party in the legislature and you don't have to sit as independent as
Right.
independents, which I guess gives them more opportunities to speak and all of that. But not I don't I'd have to look at the rules closer, but I don't even think it's that much. So it's kind of like that's not the benchmark. Party status is not the benchmark. The benchmark was official opposition, and she missed the benchmark. That was the benchmark. Win your seat so that you have a seat in the legislature, so you can actually stand up and talk. Because otherwise, no one is going to hear what you're saying. And even if you are there, they're not going to hear what you're saying. But at least you get to be somewhere near a microphone, right? And two, get to official opposition. So once again, you can stand up and talk, right? This is a waste of time. This whole, oh, we got to official party status. It's a complete waste of time. So I think there's a little bit of a high that's going on among everybody who are like, oh my God, we made a crack in the case, like we got some positive outcome, no matter how small. So I mean, it's good for them. They're looking at progress, but the benchmark was win your seat, win official opposition, and that benchmark was not achieved. They missed the goal. And I'm sorry to say this, but I don't understand how a leader of a party can remain after not winning her own seat in her own city where she was a mayor for almost 10 years.
Yeah. Like I said last night, like at the very least, at the very least, being extremely generous, it's not credible at all,
Yeah.
right? You have no voice in the legislature. The only voice that you have is your caucus, and they're from a seat perspective in the legislature, they are leaderless.
They
How
don't
can
need her, right? Like they don't need you if you're not in there. You can't lead
right,
them if you
right.
if you're not in. What's she gonna do? Lead them over text? WhatsApp group? Like how are you gonna lead them?
Well, you could, because I know in Brampton City Council when Linda Jeffrey was mayor, uh,
WhatsApp group.
she did a lot of leading by text. So I'll just say that. But I think honestly,
Ontario Liberal Caucus WhatsApp
I
group.
yeah, the WhatsApp group. Yeah, yeah. But I thought about it a lot today, and I think that the NDP
Mm-hmm.
have a big opportunity here because Merritt, this was her first test.
Yeah.
She wasn't gonna win government,
Mm-hmm.
but she retained opposition.
Yeah.
And if she is stretching out her hand to the premier saying, I'm willing to work with you, then I think that in the future, she can moderate the party to a point where, like we talk about the federal Conservative Party sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes Pierre is too ideological,
Right.
and the NDP can be that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's an opportunity for the New Democrat Party to go even further in Ontario,
Yeah.
right? And
Okay.
Ian was on here last night, and he
Mhm.
said that, if you're gonna the Ontario Liberal Party lost 3 elections in a row.
Mhm.
Um, maybe the first one didn't count, but the second and the third one,
Mhm.
um, that's a big problem, right? And just people, how do future voters take you seriously? So